Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets. I really appreciate your time. I hope you are having a fantastic Thanksgiving. And if you happen to watch this video and it's not Thanksgiving, hope you're having a great day. We finally have a case that is going to challenge the National Firearms Act. And it's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. And it could be the case that renders the NFA no more. Stick by, I'll tell you more about it. A Kansas man named Shane Cox was manufacturing his own firearms and silencers and selling them in the state of Kansas. And he made sure he stamped them made in Kansas and was selling and even collecting sales tax. And why do I point that out? Well, this gentleman was charged by the feds, and last week they found him guilty of one count of possessing an unregistered suppressor. But what is important here is there's a Kansas state law that says, and I'm going to paraphrase, that any gun or ammo made in Kansas that stays in Kansas isn't subject to any national firearms laws or gun control. Now, this Kansas law was entitled the Second Amendment Protection Act. It was signed into law in 2013 by Governor Sam Brownback. Sorry about that. I had to check his name. Kept wanting to say Brokeback. But the governor signed that into law and basically made any federal gun control irrelevant inside of Kansas. Now, if you know the Constitution and you're not a millennial who thinks that your rights are given to you by that paper, your rights are given to you by your creator. And the Constitution and the Supplemental Bill of Rights were created basically to tighten the grip on the federal government and restrict what it could do. Any powers in those documents not expressly given to the federal government was reserved to the states. And you can go back and read your Constitution and read your Bill of Rights. If you don't have your own copy, shame on you, but you can find it online. There's all kinds of apps. But you can read that, and I suggest you should, because nowhere in there does it say anything about the feds controlling guns. It doesn't say that in there anywhere. In fact, the Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia, being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, for 143 years, the Second Amendment was unchallenged until Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in power, and he decided that he was more powerful than the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And Roosevelt decided that he would sign into law the National Firearms Act of 1934. Now, since then, there was only one case that was going to challenge the NFA on a federal level, just one case. And that case was going to be U.S. versus Miller of 1939. But unfortunately, that case was never heard because neither the defendant nor his attorney showed up before the court. Maybe Hillary got a hold of them, but they didn't show. The case never got heard. Here we sit. The NFA has never been challenged in federal court until now. Now, even though that this case right now against Cox has been decided, last week they found him guilty of one count of possessing an unregistered suppressor. His sentencing is set for February 6th right now. And why do I think this will challenge it? Because the judge in the case even said that he believes that this case will make it before the Supreme Court. And why did he say that? Well, when Cox was selling these homemade firearms and silencers or suppressors, he was providing everybody with a copy of the Kansas law that said that what he was doing was perfectly legal, and that as long as those items stayed in the state, they were all set as it pertained to state law versus federal law. Since this whole thing has come to a head, the Attorney General for Kansas has come out and said that that law is constitutional, and said that, quote, the buyer's reliance on the state law as a defense is reasonable and is consistent with the state's interest in ensuring the Second Amendment Protection Act itself is defended. So you have the state Attorney General saying that what these people did was legal. You have the law itself that was signed in, that is saying that it's legal. You even have the fact that then U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, and remember how impartial he was like the epitome of the nice guy, Eric Holder. When he was Obama's top cop, he told Kansas that, hey, your law is unconstitutional. You can't tell us feds what to do, even though the Constitution says you can. And even in 2014, the Brady Group, You know, the whole Brady Bill people. They challenged the law in Kansas and sued, and that case was thrown out because the judge said the group didn't have a standing to sue. So you have all these facets, all these scenarios where this law was held up to be legal and binding in the state of Kansas. But yet, the feds found this gentleman guilty of violating the NFA. So he's going to be sentenced in February. He's going to appeal to the Supreme Court, and it's huge now because now we have a time where Donald Trump will already be in office. I assume that he will already have named his justice pick to the Supreme Court, and hopefully by that time, this pick will already have been put through via the Senate, and we'll have a pro-Second Amendment court again. The one twist I see in this is that Kansas molded this law, their Second Amendment Protection Act, they molded that law after Montana's law. Montana called it the Montana Firearms Freedom Act. And I remember that because it was called into question by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And according to that court, it was found invalid. So you got one section of case law that's going to be against Kansas here because Montana's law, which was almost identical as the one Kansas is using, was found to be invalid by the Court of Appeals. Now, Firearms Freedom Acts, or nullification laws as they're sometimes called, have been signed into law in 9 different states. And I'm going to look at the list because I don't want to miss one. In addition to Montana and Kansas, like I just said, they're also in Alaska, Arizona, Idaho, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and Wyoming. And they should be everywhere because that law is already on the books. It's called the Second Amendment. So this could be the one case that challenges the NFA, and the way it looks, it could make the NFA invalid and overturn it. Only time will tell. It's got to go before the Supreme Court, obviously. And one twist that could be a good thing for this is the man who helped write that Kansas state gun law was their Secretary of State, Chris Kobach. That's the same person who is currently in the running for a position somewhere in Trump's administration. And Kobach is on record saying, quote, the case is a perfect example of a prosecution that should never occur. So there are all kinds of things that are lining up on the side of the Second Amendment and on the side of this gentleman Cox, who was building and selling his own firearms and silencers per the law of the state, which is where the power was regulated to. So keep your eyes open. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. If you hear anything on this, if you're in Kansas and you have more information, shoot me an email if you want. The email you can find in my channel description. It's jyanis1975@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you if you know more than I do, because I am not the know-all, end-all of everything, especially not in Massachusetts. You know, that's a little ways away from where we are. But thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Help me get this stuff out. And how you can help me achieve that goal is hit that thumbs up, the like button, and subscribe to this channel so that more people get to see it. I appreciate your time. Spread this amongst your friends. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I'm fighting the tryptophan and I need a nap. But until we see each other again, this is Jared from Guns and Gadgets telling you to be safe, stay vigilant, carry a weapon. Take care.